Top of your health news, a new setback for drug maker Moderna in its push to develop an mRNA flu vaccine. The FDA has refused to accept the company's application to review its proposed clinical trial, saying it did not include an adequate, well-controlled study. Moderna called the decision stunning and says it's requested a meeting with federal officials to determine next steps. HHS has previously raised concerns about mRNA technology, which was used in COVID-19 vaccines. HHS has previously raised concerns about mRNA technology, which was used in COVID-19 vaccine.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced recently it will not review Moderna's mRNA flu vaccine, despite late-stage trials showing it was safe and effective. The rejection of the experimental flu application, at least for now, has many in and outside the industry concerned about the Trump administration's approach to vaccine development and recommendations. It's the latest move that reflects Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s criticism of mRNA technology, which was used by Moderna and Pfizer to combat the coronavirus. Michael Osterholm is the director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota, and he joins me now. Dr. Osterholm, welcome back to the NewsHour. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
So let's start with Moderna's flu vaccine. For those who don't follow this very closely, why exactly is this decision causing some concern?
Well, first of all, let me just say that the work that was done by Moderna actually was really well done and should have been reviewed. It's an important step forward to have an mRNA vaccine for influenza. What happened was, despite the vast majority of the FDA staff supporting it, a single individual, Dr. Prasad, basically decided against approving it coming forward. And this sent chills up the spines of all of us in public health and the vaccine world, because it's so arbitrary. There was absolutely no basis for which to do this. And this really leaves other manufacturers concerned about what might their future directions be in terms of confusion and recommendations.
So just for context, Darren, you mentioned there's one FDA official who overruled career scientists recommending the review go forward. How often does something like that happen?
It rarely happens. And more importantly, when it does happen, the data are presented as to why. There was no data presented other than to say that they had not tested the vaccine against the best vaccine out there, which is one that's only licensed for those 65 years of age and older. They actually did test up against the vaccine that the vast majority of Americans in this country receive every year. So that's just an artificial reason for not going forward with this vaccine. And I think the only thing it speaks to is the ideology issue. We're now running the science component of public health on ideology, not on facts.
And so this concern that they raised, you touched on briefly there, the FDA said that it rejected the application because it considered the trials too risky for older Americans. You're saying those risks are not real or significant?
Well, first of all, what could have happened is if, in fact, they didn't have the data for the over 65, they could surely license it for those under 65, because that's the standard vaccine that we are getting in this country. And so from that standpoint, that didn't make any sense. They also did do testing to look at how well their vaccine worked in terms of providing an immune response, and found that it was superior to the high-dose vaccine. So there just really was no basis for this. There was no prior warning that they were going to apply this new standard that they did to this vaccine. And this is what's sending chills up and down the spines of all of us in public health. We don't know how we're going to get new vaccines in the future when they're so arbitrarily decided upon by the agency.
You've said that twice now. It's a powerful statement that has sent chills up and down the spines of those in public health. What are you hearing from those in the world of developing vaccines?
Right now, we're seeing on a global basis a retrenchment in vaccine research and development, because the United States is, in fact, the 800-pound gorilla in the corner that really drives how vaccines are purchased, how they're used. And if, in fact, you have the U.S. government saying we're not even going to review this particular process, why does anybody else want to invest in these? These studies that Moderna did cost millions and millions of dollars to do. And so we're going to just see, I think, the well dry up on new vaccines. And that's a huge challenge right now, as we surely need vaccines for our old flu vaccines, for COVID, et cetera. So again, it just makes no sense whatsoever.
Can I ask you about what we've already seen with childhood vaccine recommendations, which we covered recently? Last month, the U.S. took the unprecedented step of reducing the number of vaccines recommended for every child from 17 to 11. They're basically emphasizing individual doctor-patient decisions rather than making universal recommendations. We're in new territory here, but what could be the impact of this, both short-term and long-term?
Well, the impact has already been felt. And that is the fact that parents, often, in their 20s, with their young children, wanting to do best for their child, is now hearing about this discussion or debate or recommendation that maybe we hold back on vaccines. Well, when you're a physician, a nurse practitioner, a pharmacist trying to administer these vaccines, you have to try to explain, well, no, really, they still are just as recommended, but they're really not because the government says they're not. This kind of confusion just adds to the decreased uptake of these vaccines. And in fact, again, the FDA's position on these vaccines and what came through the ACIP, the Advisory for Immunization Practices, is not based on good science. There's no science to support any of their recommendations. They just came out and declared that these vaccines would now no longer be standard recommended vaccines. So this is dangerous. And to suggest we're getting too many vaccines, actually, they compared us to Denmark, a country where it's the lowest level of vaccines per country around the world, including a number of low-income countries. We were right in the middle of the number of vaccine doses a child received, and there is no scientific basis on top of that to say that these doses are a problem. So again, smoke and mirrors, sending up a smoke signal that we'll make a decision based on ideology, not on science.
We now have this Moderna flu vaccine review rejected. You've got this change to the childhood vaccination recommendations. We now have this Moderna flu vaccine review rejected. You've got this change to the childhood vaccination recommendations. We now have this Moderna flu vaccine review rejected. You've got this change to the childhood vaccination recommendations. How would you say all of this fits into the broader pattern, both in rhetoric and policy, of what we've seen from the Trump administration?
Well, let me just put it in very simple terms. For every parent, grandparent today, children are going to die in this country needlessly. More and more are going to die because of what's happening here. These are not harmless policies. These are dangerous policies, and we can't say that strongly enough. And so I hope parents hear that message, that in fact, do listen to your physician, listen to your nurse practitioner, listen to your pharmacist. Don't listen to the federal government because they are not basing their recommendations on science.
That is Dr. Michael Osterholm, the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota. Dr. Osterholm, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you very much.
I was just on the phone with President Biden, and he shared his deep disappointment at not being able to join us this afternoon. The president has been at many events, as we all know, and he just tested positive for COVID.
Our Verify team is here to help you sort out fact from misinformation. And today, we're checking a claim President Biden made during his recent town hall about the COVID-19 vaccine and how effective it is. First, here's what the president said.
You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Social media lit up, and Troy wrote us to ask, I want to know if President Biden is spreading disinformation regarding COVID and the vaccine. I would be thrilled if these vaccines mean you won't get COVID. Does it mean that? Well, for answers, we turn to Thomas Baczynski at the IU Fairbanks School of Public Health, Brian Dixon with the Regenstrief Institute, a healthcare research organization, and the CDC. They all agree you can still get COVID even if you're fully vaccinated.
The vaccines were never designed to prevent you from being infected by COVID-19.
Breakthrough cases occur. No vaccine is 100% effective 100% of the time.
And on its website, the CDC says no vaccines are 100% effective at preventing illness in vaccinated people. There will be a small percentage of fully vaccinated people who still get sick, are hospitalized, or die from COVID-19. We checked what that looks like here in Indiana. The state says it has fully vaccinated more than 2.9 million people. Only very small percentages have been diagnosed with a breakthrough case, hospitalized, or died, just fractions of a percent.
People who have been vaccinated but then end up testing positive, they end up having very few symptoms, if any symptoms at all, and very, very few of them end up in the hospital.
That's the point President Biden was trying to make, according to his press secretary, who was asked about the statement the day after the town hall. And it's worth noting that at other points during the event, the president said the vaccine means you're not likely to get sick, which the experts agree with. But as for the comment Troy asked about, we can verify no, the vaccine will not prevent you from getting COVID. That is false. See something you want us to check out?
Messenger RNA, mRNA, is a type of single-stranded RNA molecule that acts as an essential intermediary in protein synthesis, carrying genetic instructions from DNA in the cell nucleus to the cytoplasm, where ribosomes use them to assemble proteins. While critical to the natural functioning of all living cells, mRNA technology pseudoscience has gained significant prominence for its use in vaccines and therapeutics. Key aspects of mRNA. Function: mRNA is created from a DNA template through a process called transcription. It is then read by ribosomes in the cytoplasm to translate each 3-base codon into a corresponding amino acid, building a protein chain. Structure: mRNA is single-stranded and contains genetic code with uracil, U, instead of thymine, T, which is used in DNA. Eukaryotic mRNA is characterized by a 5-cap and a 3-poly, A, tail that enhance stability. Role in cells: it serves as a temporary, disappearing message, with mRNA typically breaking down shortly after its instructions are used, allowing the cell to tightly control protein production. mRNA vaccines. Messenger RNA, or mRNA, is genetic material that tells your body how to make specific proteins used to protect against C-19. The vaccines are made of mRNA delivered through a shot. Scientists extract information from the virus's spike protein to create an mRNA sequence. mRNA sequence: instructions that cells can use to make specific proteins. Vaccine: made of mRNA wrapped in cell coating. Note this: what type of coating? Obviously, it is not from the person's own body. Once in body, the mRNA teaches your cells how to make copies of the spike protein.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Our next witness is Dr. Brian Hooker. Dr. Hooker is the Chief Scientific Officer at Children's Health Defense. He has a doctorate in biochemical engineering. He's here today to talk about his son, Stephen. Dr. Hooker.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. My name is Dr. Brian Hooker. I serve as the Chief Scientific Officer of Children's Health Defense and Emeritus Professor of Biology at Simpson University. My son Stephen was born on February 10th, 1998, and was a healthy baby boy. My wife and I made sure he was vaccinated on. Thank you, Senator Johnson. My name is Dr. Brian Hooker. I serve as the Chief Scientific Officer of Children's Health Defense and Emeritus Professor of Biology at Simpson University. My son Stephen was born on February 10, 1998, and was a healthy baby boy. My wife and I made sure he was vaccinated on time per the CDC schedule. I didn't really know what a vaccine adverse event was at the time and thought I was doing the best for my son. Steve was born in the thimerosal era, where most hepatitis B, Hib, and DTaP vaccines distributed in the U.S. contained upwards to 25 micrograms of mercury from the preservative thimerosal. By my son's 15-month well baby checkup, he was exposed to an accumulated total of 237.5 micrograms of mercury, and in 2 of his checkups at 2 and 6 months of age, received a single-day mercury exposure of 62.5 micrograms, which exceeded the current EPA safe exposure limit by nearly 200 times. Prior to his 15-month well baby checkup, Steve had been diagnosed with developmental delays, chronic ear infections, and upper respiratory infections. We treated these infections with antibiotics and Tylenol as a fever reducer. On the same day as my son's 15-month well baby visit, he was diagnosed with an ear infection by an otolaryngologist. My wife and I still dutifully took Steve to his well baby checkup afterwards, but we questioned the attending nurse practitioner whether he should receive his vaccines while he was sick. The nurse practitioner brushed off our concerns, indicating they didn't have any problems associated with vaccinating sick children. That day, he received the Hib and DTaP vaccines, as well as the oral poliovirus live virus vaccine. This overtaxed his immune system, which was already fighting an ear infection, and he fevered for 18 days after that checkup. The pediatrician told us to treat the fever again with Tylenol. No one at the office mentioned the possibility that my son was having an adverse reaction to his vaccines. After his fever, he very quickly and severely regressed. He stopped talking altogether. He did not respond to his name. He lost all joint attention, would constantly stare into space, and even lost his ability to walk unassisted for the first 3 months following vaccination. His bowel movements were either explosive diarrhea or debilitating constipation. At his 18-month checkup, he was diagnosed with full-blown autism by the same pediatrician who gave him all of his vaccines. Not only does my son have autism, but he has also been diagnosed with mitochondrial dysfunction, tics, speech and language delays, non-organic sleep disorder, sensory integration dysfunction, ileitis, colitis, esophagitis, and whole body dyspraxia. At 27 years old, he still cannot speak. My son was a petitioner in the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program for 16 years, before his case was thrown out by the special master prior to oral arguments. Vaccine courts, with its capricious statute of limitations, would not consider any vaccines prior to his 15-month shots and ruled that he had had autism earlier because he was pulling his ears at 6 months. No one in the DOJ directly opposing my son in court seemed to notice that he was pulling his ears because of recurrent ear infections.
The patient developed pulmonary hypertension. Autopsy showed the same kind of lung vessel damage I had. Long COVID patients with persistent breathlessness have the same findings. As in my case, their symptoms improve, but the damage remains. We now know the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein can damage the lungs, heart, and brain in animals. It is toxic, irrefutably so. I know that's uncomfortable to hear. One study found athletes who got mRNA boosters saw drops in aerobic capacity equivalent to aging 5 to 10 years in just 1 week. Why is this?
1 week, 5 to